Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're going back to a really critical moment, maybe one of the lowest points for the American cause. The winter of 1777 at Valley Forge.
Yeah, it's hard to really picture how bad it was.
Absolutely. So you have the Continental Army, Washington's army, and they're basically falling apart, shivering, starving.
Mm-hmm.
Discipline was pretty much non-existent. Training, forget about it. No real tactics to speak of.
Yeah, a lot of these guys, they'd never even held a proper weapon before signing up. Officers, too, brave, sure, but often lacking that, core military experience.
Exactly. And Washington, he knew. He knew this couldn't continue. If they were going to have any shot against the British, something drastic had to change.
The situation was incredibly precarious. I mean, the army was genuinely on the verge of just dissolving. Washington realized that, patriotism alone wasn't enough against the British military machine. They needed structure. They needed professional training.
Which brings us right to this really fascinating character, Baron Friedrich Wilhelm von Steuben.
Steuben, yes.
A Prussian military man. He arrives in America, and apparently not for the usual reasons, not for money or glory, but he genuinely wanted to help this struggling new nation.
He certainly presented himself that way. He was quite a figure, apparently. Tall, commanding presence, looked like he'd seen plenty of action.
But it wasn't like everyone just rolled out the red carpet, was it? There was some suspicion.
Oh, definitely. You have to remember, there were other European officers coming over, some just looking for rank or opportunity. So yeah, there was skepticism. Was he just another adventurer?
Right.
But Washington, ever the pragmatist, he was desperate. He saw something in Steuben, maybe recognized the genuine expertise, and decided to take a chance.
And you have to wonder what Steuben thought when he first saw the Continental Army.
Oh, imagine the shock. He came from the Prussian army, arguably the most disciplined, regimented force in Europe at the time.
So he arrives at Valley Forge.
Yeah, sees, chaos. Soldiers in rags, literally freezing. Many without shoes, terrible equipment, no order. Our sources say he was just, stunned. Disbelief.
How do you even start faced with that? Coming from his background, it seems like an impossible task.
But that's the thing about Steuben. His resolve seems to have been pretty solid. He saw the mess, yes, but he also saw potential, maybe. And he had a plan. He didn't waste any time.
Okay, so what did he do? Just start barking orders?
Well, yes and no. He set about transforming them with this interesting mix. Patience, apparently, but also real passion and definitely stern Prussian discipline. But the first major hurdle was, surprisingly, language.
Right. He didn't really speak much English, did he? Fluent in French and German, but English, not so much.
Exactly. So how do you drill an army when you can't properly communicate instructions?
Yeah. How did he manage that?
It's actually one of the more colorful parts of the story.
Yeah.
He used sheer force of personality, lots of gestures, demonstrating movements himself. He'd grab a musket and physically show them. And repetition, endless repetition. And he relied heavily on his aides, guys like Alexander Hamilton and John Lawrence, who spoke French, to translate. Apparently, his instructions often came mixed with some very creative swearing in German and French.
So Hamilton was translating curses.
Pretty much, translating these theatrical outbursts into actual commands. But sources say he'd often apologize later. This combination of, strictness and this sort of fiery but human approach actually worked. The men started to respond. He established a really strict routine, marching, drills, the absolute fundamentals over and over. Precision was key.
That's incredible. It makes him seem much more real somehow. Okay, so he gets some drilling, gets some basic order established. But what was his biggest, lasting impact?
That has to be his manual, the famous Blue Book, officially called Regulations for the Order and Discipline of the Troops of the United States.
The Blue Book. Okay.
This wasn't just a book. It became the book, the absolute foundation for the American Army's training and organization for, decades.
What made it so important?
It was comprehensive. It covered everything: how an individual soldier should stand, march, handle his weapon, how companies and regiments should maneuver on the battlefield. Crucially, it provided a standardized system.
Which they desperately needed.
Desperately. Before Steuben, different units might have completely different ways of doing things, often based on whatever the commander vaguely remembered or invented. The Blue Book created a common language, a common set of procedures. It instilled professionalism. It turned farmers into soldiers, mentally as well as physically.
Standardization, professionalism. Makes sense. Now, you mentioned drills. What about the bayonet? I read that his bayonet training was particularly revolutionary for the Americans.
Yes, absolutely. That's a great point. Before Steuben, the American soldiers apparently didn't have much respect for the bayonet. They saw it as, I don't know, maybe a tool for cooking, or they'd even discard them.
Really? They'd throw them away.
Some accounts suggest that, yeah, Steuben, coming from the European tradition, knew the bayonet was a crucial shock weapon in close quarters fighting. He taught them how to use it effectively.
How? What was different?
He simplified the complex European drills into a clear, efficient sequence, something like 10 precise movements. But the key wasn't just individual skill, it was teaching them to use it together as a unit. Advancing in a disciplined line, bayonets fixed. It became a psychological weapon too, fearsome to face. He made it an integral part of their tactics, not just a pointy stick on the end of a gun. Those drills were relentless. Constant practice.
You can almost hear the commands echoing across Valley Forge. So this intense training, did it actually pay off?
Dramatically. The transformation over those months at Valley Forge was, by all accounts, remarkable. What went in as a disorganized, demoralized group started to look and act like a real army.
And the big tisk came soon after, right? At Monmouth.
Exactly. The Battle of Monmouth, June 1778, one of the largest battles of the war. And this was the moment of truth for Steuben's training.
How did they do?
They stood their ground. Under intense heat and facing experienced British regulars, the Continental line held. They maneuvered, they fired volleys, they even launched counterattacks with the bayonet just as Steuben had taught them. Their discipline was noted by observers on both sides.
Wow.
Now, the battle itself is often called a tactical draw. But strategically, and perhaps more importantly, psychologically, it was a huge victory for the Americans. It showed the British and the world that the Continental Army was no longer a militia to be easily swept aside. They could fight. They were a professional force now.
That really is a pivotal moment.
Wait.
So looking at the bigger picture then, Steuben's legacy.
It's immense. By the war's end, he'd fundamentally reshaped the American military. He created the blueprint for an effective fighting force, one that could actually compete with European armies.
And Washington recognized that.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Washington wasn't someone who gave praise lightly, but he called Steuben, and I think this is a direct quote, one of the principal instruments in the establishment of American liberty. High praise indeed.
Yet his name isn't always the first one that comes to mind, like Washington or Jefferson.
True. He's perhaps one of the more overlooked founding fathers, if you will, specifically of the U.S. military structure. His methods, his blue book, they formed the bedrock of Army training for generations. He retired somewhat quietly to a farm in New York, but his work lived on. Every drill, every formation, it traces back to the system he implemented back in that desperate winter. He don't just teach them how to fight, he taught them how to function as an army, how to win.
So thinking about this story today, what's the takeaway for us, for you listening?
Well, I think it's a powerful reminder, isn't it, how one individual with the right skills and, crucially, the determination and belief can fundamentally change an entire organization, especially one facing huge challenges.
Yeah, it shows that behind the big moments, the famous victories, there are often these crucial figures working behind the scenes, providing the actual nuts and bolts, the structure needed for success.
Exactly. Those drill commands at Valley Forge, that rhythm of discipline training, it wasn't glamorous, but it laid the foundation for the modern U.S. military.
So here's something for you to think about. Consider the unsung experts in any field, the Steubens. How often does real progress depend not just on the visionary leaders, but on the practical, dedicated people who build the systems, who teach the fundamentals, who believe in potential and provide the structure to achieve it?
What essential skills or structures are we relying on today, maybe without even realizing it, that were put in place by some dedicated, perhaps forgotten expert from the past? It's definitely something to ponder.